Well, hello, and welcome to Beyond the Diagnosis with Chris and Anna, being broadcast from the BioSkills of the Northeast Studio in Fall River, Massachusetts. Before we begin our conversation, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Bay Coast Bank. Bay Coast Bank is just right for all of your financial needs. Visit baycoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. And Duncan Hearing Healthcare you can trust, with sites in Fall River, Dartmouth, Falmouth, and Centerville. For more information, visit their website, duncanhearing.com. As always, you can support our podcast by watching us and sponsoring us on YouTube, Instagram, following, I should say, and you can also follow us on Facebook. So why don't we move right along, and Anna, tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing today.
So we're here to connect with you, our patients. Thank you for your support, and please share us with your family and friends. And you can email us also, primacarebeyonddiagnosis@gmail.com. Last time, and actually first time we did our introductory podcast between Chris and I, we discussed many aspects of health, starting from physical health, psychological, maybe spiritual health, and different aspects of health. And today we will speak about one aspect of psychological health and its impact on our physical health, and maybe an impact on our mortality overall, meaning on our deaths and our success of staying alive and being healthy.
Very important.
We're so very honored to have here today J.W. Freiberg. He's our guest today. And Dr. Freiberg has a doctorate degree in psychology from UCLA. He is also a lawyer and got his law degree from Harvard Law School. He's also a New York Times bestselling author, and I actually got 2 of his books here. His research is extensive on chronic loneliness, and this is what we're here to talk about, loneliness. Terry, I understand you want us to call you Terry.
Everyone calls me Terry.
Thank you so much for all your work for our health, our society, all that you've done, all the publishing and research. And we're so very honored to have you here.
Yeah, really very excited.
Well, I'm pleased to be here.
So, I think everyone probably knows what loneliness is. I mean, probably everyone has experienced it at some point in their life. I would think most people have. But why don't you give us a definition, from a, I guess, scientific standpoint, what loneliness is?
Well, let me say one thing about loneliness, and then I'll give you that definition. Okay. And we're all sad from time to time, but sadness is not the same thing as clinical depression.
Right.
Okay. We're all lonely from time to time, but that kind of everyday loneliness, like you miss your grandfather because he's gone now,
right,
is not the same thing as chronic loneliness. Mm-hmm. So it's more like clinical depression. It's very serious. There are people who have essentially no contact with others or no meaningful contact with others, even though they might be surrounded by others. So that's who we're talking about. The definition is fun because loneliness is not an emotion. It's a sensation. Animals, we are mammals. We are social mammals. We are driven to be together with one another for safety, as many other mammals are. Mm-hmm. And so when mammals get separated from one another, especially social mammals who deal a lot with one another, they get nervous about it because their system is telling them, just like the system says, you're hungry. They have no thought about hunger. Animals don't think the way we Homo sapiens do. They just feel hunger. And now they go look for food, or they go look for water, or they go look for shelter, or they do the things they need to do to reproduce. All right, so they're driven in all of these spheres by body chemistry, whether it's neurological or it's blood-based. They're driven to do these things by the chemistry in them, and so are we because we're animals. So when we feel loneliness, chronic loneliness, serious loneliness, if you like, it's a sensation that wells up in us like hunger, like thirst, like when you have to go to the bathroom, or when you're just stiff and you need to get up and exercise, even though you'd love to continue working. Your body tells you these things. It speaks to you. Because in animals, how else are they going to learn? They're not going to read books on these things. They just need to do what they need to do to survive.
It's instinctual almost.
Well, except
They're going to
use the word instinct anymore because we understand the neurological patterning and how it gets, but it's the same idea.
Yeah, but with an animal, I mean.
Well, yeah, with an animal, I'd stay away from the word instinct.
Okay.
19th century had a lot of implications. We don't need, it's got baggage.
All right.
But
We'll stay away from that.
But the biochemistry of what drives an animal, how does a mouse know to make a nest? Because she's pregnant. She doesn't know she's pregnant. She doesn't know she's about to have young. It's not like we humans, we're going to have a party because the baby's coming. That doesn't happen at all. But all of a sudden, about 3 days before she gives birth, a virgin mouse, i.e. one who's never had a litter before, goes and gathers nest materials and makes this nest. It's just right to raise her.
But biology drives her.
Biology drives her.
The neurobiology, whatever is genetic inheritance that is transmitted basically down the lineage.
Right.
Yeah. So it's more of let's say a subconscious.
It's
subconscious.
I would even say preconscious.
Precautions. Okay.
Yeah.
So in humans, you would say that loneliness is that sensation
Exactly.
that we don't really. It's not like an emotion. Yeah.
No.
But we can develop it.
Right.
We just feel it.
It's like hunger or thirst. It's not very different.
So when we feel that means that we have to give ourselves what our body needs. Our body tells us something.
Yeah. Whether it's go eat.
We eat. If we're thirsty, we drink.
And
We're cold.
look at what you
Cover.
think of what we are. So we're great. We've evolved from the great apes. But if you go look at the great apes in the zoo, they have fangs that if they were to bite you, they'd rip your arm off. They have strength in their arms, that would just tear a human apart. They climb. Their feet are made to do, life in the trees and so on. We gave all that up.
Yeah.
We have no defenses at all, right? We have no fangs. We have no claws. We have no venom. We don't run that fast. Our senses are visual, which is a problem with visual being your concentrated senses. You're not very good at night, So how did we survive for millions of years? Remember, agriculture is only 12,000 years old. Before that, all humans, or hominins we call them, of which we Homo sapiens are the latest and the only and last surviving type, but we know of 65 or 70 types. They had to survive in a world with no agriculture, no shelter, no housing, and no grocery stores.
So they connected. The connection.
What else did they have?
Social connection. That was their trust, their security.
They had to survive as a unit.
As a unit.
Usually family-based, small units. After all, think how much even in the modern world where everything is safe, there's doctors, there's knowledge about how to do everything and keep children safe. I now have grandchildren, and I had children, and my 9-year-old jumped up in my arms a couple of weeks ago. He was a little upset about something, and he jumped up in my arms like he was a 3-year-old again, So that's how long how hard we work to keep children safe in a safe world. Imagine 1,000,000 years ago, when every day was a question of hunting and looking for food of this type or that type, dealing with seasonal change, dealing with rainstorms, everything.
It was danger.
Danger.
All about
Danger.
Little children were prey.
Yeah.
To animals that were looking for food. So imagine, how did you keep babies safe? You had to hold them even more than we do.
Yeah.
Humans, we have by far the longest childhood of any animal. It's over twice as long as the next longest, which is one of the great ape types.
So connection and taking care of each other, touching and all of that, basically combats loneliness.
It does, and touching is a very interesting topic because my theory is that mammals developed affectivity. So when we developed from reptiles, and reptiles, only 5% of reptiles do anything to protect their newborns. They'll protect the eggs, but not the newborn.
Okay.
The crocodilians are the big exception. They will protect their young for quite a while. But basically, reptiles aren't very good at it, and they just don't do it. Their young are born pretty viable and able to do what they need to do pretty quickly, if on a small scale. Human babies are useless, right? Humans, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, what can they do to help themselves? Not much. So humans had to have unity as a group and coordinate and cooperate and eventually learn to communicate effectively.
Yes.
So they had the development of syntactic language out of sign languages. That's why we are driven to be with others, by this feeling we get of loneliness. Just like we're driven, I got to eat. I'm starving here. I've got to find some food. I'm thirsty. I got to go to bed. I am so tired I can barely stand. Our body talks to us and tells us what to do because we're still animals.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And it's busy telling us when we feel lonely, you're not adequately connected.
So we have to take that input from our body, from our neurological system and our immunological system. If we feel lonely, we need to do something to give ourselves the connection.
Just like if we feel hungry or thirsty or whatever the feeling may be, our bodies tell us quite a bit.
Yes.
Exactly.
And what data do we have? What data do we have on impact on our, let's say, biology and cells? Let's talk on biological level. Any data that we have on that, and then we can go to mortality, even diseases overall.
Let me tell you about a wonderful study by John Cacioppo, Professor John Cacioppo, University of Chicago, recently deceased, unfortunately. Great works on loneliness. And he did some studies with Dr. Stephen Cole, C-O-L-E, at UCLA, who's a histologist. That means the study of cells, as you know, of course. And they were interested in the following. They knew the statistical fact that gay males who were out stayed much healthier, much longer, and lived much longer than closeted gay males.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
What was going on? So what they did was they took bonobos. So those are great apes that are about that big and very, very social animal. Mm-hmm. And they are in groups of about 40 in a cage setting, in nature too, but in a cage setting where they study them. And they took experimental individuals out of that cage where they were familiar with everybody and put them in a cage where they were the total stranger. So in bonobos,
Out of their community.
out of their community, no mate, no kids, no relatives, no friends, all these kind of, I know that's anthropomorphizing a bit, but that's what their relationships look like in their own community.
So like complete isolation in a way.
Complete isolation. The stranger ape sat in the corner, huddled in the corner, went to the food trough after everyone else was done for the leftovers, was ignored or even ill-treated by others. Then Dr. Cole took cells from these experimental apes and looked at them under the microscope. Mm-hmm. And it was the effect on the immunological system was so clear that when I give a lecture, I actually read his quote. It's so wonderful, but it's approximately, I can't do it word for word from memory, but it was approximately, no wonder lonely people get so ill in so many different ways and die so much younger than well-connected people. I can see it in their cell, in the physiology on a cellular level. I can see the effects of isolation.
And we see that in our clinical practice all the time. As an internist, I see a lot of people who their whole connection was work. And then they retire and they have nothing. They don't have people they connect with. They don't have hobbies. They don't have groups that they belong to. And those patients, unfortunately, often will go downhill and die very quickly. And then you have, on the other end, you'll have patients who are well into their 90s that are connected with groups and others and communities and, projects and whatever it may be. And they just thrive.
Yep. That's just what I'm talking about.
Yep. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So there was a quote from this was in your book, and I thought this was striking. So I wanted to just mention this. Loneliness is one of the most serious public health crises, and with enormous impact on our psychological and physical health. This is a bit of what we're talking about now,
right.
But the fact that it is one of the most serious public health crises is very interesting. When you think about it, it really is. Maybe you can talk a little bit about why that is, because I think it's, it's just an important point to understand.
Well, the not the current Surgeon General of the United States, but the previous Surgeon General wrote a book on loneliness. It's superb, and he did a meta-study. He was able to have the office do a meta-study, so that means when you study studies, so you have these enormous numbers of people involved that you're looking at, and you add together the studies that others have done, so you get this scope. The findings were crystal clear. Physiological system by physiological system is ill-affected by inadequate connection. Yeah. And you can find it in the, just whether you're more or less between a third and a half worse off in every system, almost every system in your body, if you're a poorly connected.
Right. Yeah. So the immune system, the cardiovascular system, you can go right down the list.
Everything goes down. Your health goes down on every organ, every part of your body. Actually, I looked up some of those studies and meta-analysis, and they're different ones, but they quote and looking at different studies, actually up to like millions of people. They found that increased overall mortality, meaning your chances of dying, goes from 22 to 32% if you are completely isolated. So chronic loneliness in 20%, and then if you live alone and you feel isolated, then the mortality overall from all causes of death go up to 32%, which is really impressive.
That's a big jump. That's a 50% jump.
And notice that link there.
Dramatic.
That people don't think about, like, why would I die of pneumonia because I'm lonely? Or why would I die of heart disease because I'm lonely? But that connection exists.
Yes,
yeah, that's really remarkable.
Important. As we said, if you have a feeling of hunger and you don't feed yourself, your body doesn't get what it needs. If you are cold or too hot, then you cannot regulate. So maybe when we feel that loneliness, and chronic especially, because we all feel sad a little bit, as you said, and maybe a little bit of loneliness, but if it's chronically loneliness, then we don't actually make an effort to connect and to do something about it, then our body basically has an impact on our body, immune system and different systems in our body, neurological, immunological, endocrine system. And then here's overall, the risk of death, all the risk of death from 22 to 32%. Impactful. So to me, we have to basically act on our sensation of loneliness.
We have to listen to our body.
How do we connect with others?
Yeah.
And how do we connect? Even using our cell phone, we talk about...
Right, and that makes me very nervous about what's going to happen in the future with our society.
You should be nervous.
Because, I see less and less real connection all the time.
And a good proof of that is if you take the population in America, you get exactly the same statistic in Canada, and Europe is not all that different, but somewhat. And you divide it by age groups into 5 groups. Okay. We call them quintiles. So the loneliest if you say to people, what do you think who are the loneliest people? The older people, medium or youngest.
Yeah.
Almost everybody who will say, well, it's got to be the oldest people. It's,
yeah,
you're out
of dead, they're not working.
You're not working. You were saying, your friends are formed at work. Now you've left work. You've lost half your friends. You're not feeling that well. Maybe your mate has predeceased you.
Right.
Everybody guesses the oldest, and that's wrong.
That's wrong.
The loneliest quintile of the American population are the youngest.
Teenagers? Wow.
They test as the loneliness. Teenagers, in terms of being together in person with their friends, that statistic has been reduced by 2/3 over the last 30 years. Mostly when they're dealing with each other, they're texting each other.
So basically they connect with each other in person 2/3 less, 70% less than it used to.
Yes.
So it's interesting you say that. Just before I came here, I have to mention, I told my daughter this past weekend that we're going to have you as our guest. And I showed her the books that I bought. And my daughter, who's 16 and in high school, basically told me that she did an AP English class project on your book. The book is called Surrounded by Others and Yet So Alone. So I guess their teachers also bring up this, the issue of feeling lonely. And they discuss it in class, which is amazing. I hope that this can be like, a wake-up call, and maybe to bring into awareness, to watch to see what our children are doing, and to be aware that just being with devices is really not good connection. Connecting in person and connecting physically, maybe being with your friends and playing games together and touching each other and saying high five is so important, not only through the devices and texting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this too. You see a group of young adults, adolescents, whatnot, sitting at a table, 3 or 4 of them, and they're not talking. They actually will text each other at the same table. I've seen that before. Have you seen that? It's really...
Yeah, I was at a restaurant in New Bedford. My wife and I were there a year ago. I actually took a picture of this other table because I put it in a lecture of mine, and there was a mother and 3 children. They had ordered. I think they were waiting for their food to come in the restaurant. And in the meantime, they were each on their device.
Right.
They didn't say a word to each other.
No.
So to connect,
exactly,
we need to leave the phones away.
Right. We need to put this down.
We need to put the phones away. Get them off.
Now, you can use a car wonderfully well to get where you're going, or you can use it foolishly and drive at 120 miles an hour and have the cops chasing you and ruin your life. Okay. Right. You can use a phone well from a point of view of loneliness, the issue of loneliness, or you can misuse it. We've talked about the misuse, particularly amongst the youngest part of our population. But you also can use a phone to do something wonderful, and that is we now live very far from our families and from our friends who we grew up with. When you go back 3, 4, 5 generations, anywhere around the globe, life was communal. Life was local.
Yes.
So you grew up,
right.
Our great-great-great-grandparents, everybody, all 3 of us and everybody watching, you go back 5 generations, they knew people at birth. Those were the families in the neighborhood. That's one of those girls or boys was the person you were going to marry. Your friends had been your friends for your whole life, okay? There was no room for loneliness, no social room. The word loneliness comes into the English language about 1800.
Okay.
It's a product of industrial society. When you're in a community, you couldn't grow lonely if you wanted to. I'm sure you complained about no privacy. And
Right.
you had
Different problems.
Everybody knew about everyone.
Everybody knew about everyone.
But their mortality was affected by different things.
But yeah, by something.
Yeah.
But
right.
but there was no loneliness because you can't find it in the English literature before about 1800.
Amazing.
So when industrial society got up and going, and ever since then, we have been falling apart as a society, and we've been less and less groups, less and less permanency to groups, fewer friends, fewer permanency to friendships. Most people in the U.S. now meet their friends at work. So
right.
Is that okay? Well, it's okay, but it's a little risky because when they leave work or you leave work, that's the opposite of in the community. When your friend was your neighbor growing up, you'll have each other for life. But if you met in the office and you had lunch together during the 2 years you were together, it's dangerous. You may well lose that friendship when they move away.
Yeah. This globalization, we connect in the industrial world, but we lose personal connection.
Yeah, we do. I every year I give a talk at the Trauma Research Foundation on the topic of loneliness. It's always about 200 people in the room, and I love to ask the question when I broach this topic, how many of you live in the same city as all your siblings? And you always get 6, 7, 8 hands.
Yeah.
I live in Massachusetts. My 2 sisters live in California. Yeah. That's just typical these days. People move.
I was born in one country. I lived in 3 different countries, so
right.
Talk about displacement, and
so that's why you have to work at it, because there are major social variables that they don't mean to tear you apart from family and friends, but they have that effect.
Yeah.
Sure. So being well connected in this modern post-industrial society takes conscious effort.
Conscious effort. Yeah.
And that's a point that I make that we're all familiar with. And that is that we know that a supermarket, a modern American supermarket, some considerable percentage of the food in there you really ought not to eat.
Of course.
That's right.
They say in the middle of the store.
Everything that's in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, they say stay on the perimeter because that's where the
So true.
real meat, real chicken, real fish, real veggies.
Yes.
As opposed to, products which have names you can't possibly pronounce. Chemicals in them that are 3 inches long. So you have to watch what you eat. You have to police your intake of food if you're going to be healthy.
That's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you become one of the 40% of our society that is now obese.
Right.
40%.
Carries a lot of weight into other aspects of your health.
No pun intended, a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Which is,
It's interesting that you talk about this. Thank you. We're doctors here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for us,
We
it's
appreciate
a big
that.
topic. So thank you.
First.
But you have to work at it.
You have to.
You work at your diet. You work at exercise. You have to work at this too, right?
Exactly.
Connections.
You have to get up. Here we are sitting, and that's normal for an interview, but we are in a very sedentary society where people sit and watch their devices, watch the TV, sitting. A lot of work is sitting, so there's too much sitting, too little exercise. We all know that.
Right.
And we all try to police it to some extent, but it's a struggle, and it's day by day, week by week. You got to police it. I've been sitting at this desk for an hour. I got to get up. I know I'm not done, but I've got to get up and walk around.
So what you're saying, yep.
You have to police your relationships, your connectivity, because there's many, many factors in this society that make it hard to spend enough time, meaningful time with others in your life.
Yes.
And then without that meaningful time, you develop chronic loneliness, which has the other issues associated mortality-wise and whatnot that come forward. It's not just about not being happy. That's a big part of it, I'm sure, right? But it's also the increased risk of death and your overall health.
Yeah, then sometimes I say, well, loneliness, besides making you sick, it hurts. And people look at me quizzically like, come on. I know it's your topic, but does loneliness really hurt? And then I say to the audience, you tell me, which hurts more, a broken arm or a broken heart?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's an easy one.
That's an easy one.
Yes. Everybody wants to break a bone.
A bone, you
can overcome that physical
2
pain.
weeks later, your friends are writing on the cast.
Right.
A broken heart, you feel terrible for a year, for 3 years.
Yeah, it could be longer.
Sometimes people don't recover from that.
And you may not.
I've certainly seen that.
And so what you're saying, what we do every day and the effort that we make to connect with others, and it may mean for me is to call my sister or my mom or my brother not only on the cell phone, but also on a video call to connect with them visually, even if you're in Europe, far away in different countries. Do I go and talk to my neighbor when I see my neighbor outside? Or you see somebody who does something nice, helping someone, or maybe you help someone in the grocery store or somewhere else. Do we say hello and thank you for doing that? Do we connect with people? And that's every day what we do.
Yeah,
it's important.
It's important, and we are at a status in our society where people have so little time for connectivity because on top of work schedules and multiple jobs, the average American commutes an hour a day to get to work. That's the average, about 30 minutes on average, on top of the workday, on top of the women now work to a large extent, which they didn't. So when people get home, there's all this other work to do.
That's right.
So it's hard to find the time to put into your own family, let alone your cousins, your siblings. And I want to say something about the phone that you said that I think is really neat. So when with the cell phone, you can do FaceTime or Zoom, right, on the computer and the equivalents. It's so important because we humans, like other mammals, have a lot of mirroring skills. So mirroring is a psychological phenomenon. We all know what it is. When you go outside your house and you startle a squirrel or another small animal, and they look over at you, they look you right in the eyes. They're trying to figure out, are you a predator? And are you a hungry predator? Do I need to attack you? Do I need to change my behavior and run away? So that's a very important skill, right? Okay. So humans develop the skill of mirroring infinitely. So if you look at the words in English for being angry, there are about 22 different words for being angry, because it's very important to get straight the emotion. So anger runs from, let's say, disappointment to ire. Okay? And it's really important to get that straight. Is someone who's upset with you going to maybe tell you they're upset with you, or might they attack you? So we have these mirroring skills where we look at people, at facial expressions, because after all, the animals don't have anything much else to work on, right? They're not going to have a conversation with you to figure out if you're a threat or not.
Yeah.
And so when you talk to someone on FaceTime or on Zoom or something where you're calling your cousin, you're calling your sibling, and you can see their face. Think of all the things I'm doing to express myself right now. My hands are waving around, right?
Yeah.
My body's moving. I'm looking
Body language.
for body language. We all know how important this is, and that's available. So whereas cell phones can be a problem, i.e. teenagers ignoring each other on a personal level, just dealing by text, they also can be an instrument well used.
Right.
If you call your cousins, your family, and get in touch and stay in touch, make it a point. You've got to be active about it, just as you're about getting enough exercise, about eating healthy food. If the cell phone can play a role in that, because you can use this mirroring skill where you can see in someone's face the delight they're expressing because you saw them.
Right.
Their eyes,
Their
their
eye.
smile, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe we show the heart or something, but yes, is a different connection, a visual.
And I think that's why there's so many misunderstandings when people send emails or talk on the phone, because you don't have that ability to really understand that aspect of the communication, right? I mean, that's a big part of communication, right? All the facial expressions, the hand gestures, and all of
And
that.
the tone of a voice.
Tone of the voice.
Yes.
Emails, so misunderstood so often. And
My principle is to assume the highest intent, meaning the best intent. That's what I think is important to the way we think about those things. I would say if I think, oh my God, did they mean this? It seems like bad. Just assume that they actually had good intent, and they have good intentions, because that's the way we have to start with a level of trust. Yeah, that's how connections are built.
True.
When you go in a different country or in different society or different community, the way I came here as a physician 13 years ago, I had to trust. I had to trust my colleagues, my secretaries, my assistant, and then you build from there. Trust my neighbors, and then you build on that, But we have to start from a level of trust and to build connections, and to make an effort every day, so we can decrease potentially the impact on our mortality and live longer, a happier life. Yep. Yes.
And stay healthy, because this connectivity is so correlated and causally, and we can measure it. Remember the experiment I said of Professors Cacioppo and Stephen Cole? The little bonobo has nothing going on. Animals don't think the way we think at all. They don't have that part of the brain that we use, and so he doesn't understand why he's getting ill and feeling. All he knows is something is out of sorts, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Yes.
But we do have these cortical brains where we can understand these things and therefore say, "Oh, I got it.
I know what to do.
Now I figured out in the supermarket, I can't keep eating this super sugared food all the time. Who doesn't love that's what this is.
Of course.
It's fun. The sugar is seductive. But there's got to be, you pay for it, and so we have this ability that our fellow animals don't have to really to move up the ladder and realize what's going on. And that's why I wrote 2 books here, because they're really a pair. This 4 Seasons of Loneliness are 4 case stories that have to do with people who are super isolated.
okay.
And then after I wrote that book, I realized I came to learn that I was talking about half of the chronic lonely population. The other half are people who aren't alone. They're married, they have kids, they have colleagues, they have neighbors, they have teammates. They're surrounded by others, but they're doing a very poor job of making those potential relationships solid enough to matter.
Because there's not a real connection.
There's just they're minimalizing the connection.
Yeah.
There's one story in here called "The Boy Who Was Older Than His Parents." So I did a lot of litigation work in this sphere, obviously with the 2 degrees. And Eli Neuberger was head at Children's Hospital of the critical units there, called me up and said, "You got to come talk to this 10-year-old. He keeps saying he needs a lawyer, and he's the cutest kid in town in the cancer ward."
Okay.
So I go and meet this kid. He was so cute. He had about 4 nurses glued to him at any time. He was just so charming.
So it's so interesting you're saying they called you. You are like a doctorate in psychology and a lawyer who represented children, basically, in Massachusetts. So they call you from Children's Hospital. Like, you are like the perfect person to call the psychologist and the lawyer. Okay.
Well, it's a fun story because what happened was his parents were so busy. His dad was a moneymaker. All he could do was investment stuff, and at the office, 15 hours a day. It was never enough money.
Wow.
A kind of guy, just work. Paid no attention to this only child who was sick with cancer.
Right.
And the mother was a mayor equivalent in a town here in Massachusetts. So she'd been elected twice to this office, so ended up being a very interesting woman. But she couldn't get to her child. The boy told me that he needed a lawyer because he knew his parents loved him, but he couldn't feel their love.
Wow.
They couldn't, because one was so busy and the other was so worried because of a traumatic incident in her past,
Right.
that neither of them could effectively rain love on this lovely child.
Wow. A 10-year-old.
Who was a sick child, very sick child to boot. And they still couldn't really do it until they dealt with their issues. So it's so important in this busy modern world where there's so much superficiality and so little classical culture that we all used to have around the globe that instructed you about staying connected.
Right.
That's not there anymore. You got to figure it out yourself. And so these case stories were meant to be readable by anybody who wanted to pick up the book and read it. I was writing this one, 4 Seasons, when my friend Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, which is an amazing book.
He's a psychiatrist from Harvard, by the way, Dr. Bessel.
And we both, I hired him as an expert witness on a case, the most massive case of child sexual abuse that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had ever seen. And I hired him. I was the lead defense lawyer, and I hired him to be my expert witness. And we would get together in the evenings, sometimes over a dinner, and talk about our books and the case, of course. And the main thing we decided in the books was that we were each going to try and write a book that could be read by anyone, because too much academic work is readable only by people in the sphere.
This is the smallest.
The smallest sphere. We just supported a research project from the Trauma Research Foundation, and the write-up, published in a peer-reviewed journal, was so technical that I couldn't come close to reading it. Because my doctorate was like 2 inches off of what they were talking about on neurofeedback. I had no idea what they're talking about. And I said to the scientists, "We supported you through this project. Can you please write up a 2 or 3 page summary in plain English about what you're up to and what the study showed?"
Connection with a community.
That was the point.
People.
Yeah. So Bessel's book has been read by millions of people. My book, I think, in putting it in story format, in case story format, I think helps. I think it's readable by anyone.
That's great.
If you look on Amazon,
My daughter, who's a teenager,
there you go.
read this and presented on her.
And she was excited.
It's exciting. It means it's exciting to them. She said that, she did on 2 paragraphs, did a case study, and that's a 16-year-old, and it's, and she didn't even know that, you're one of our neighbors and living now in South Coast, Massachusetts. So, Dr. Freiberg, We are so happy to have you here today, and thank you so much. Chris, anything that you want to add?
Which book should we read first, if you were to choose one?
I would read them in the order I wrote them. I would read Four Seasons of Loneliness. So that's four amazing stories. One is about someone who was in solitary confinement for 16 years. Talk about being isolated. And how he kept saying during that, how he kept connections going, even though he was in solitary confinement. A brilliant piece of personal strength that he showed. So therefore, I think that, but more importantly, I wrote it, so I'm a little biased, but the people on Amazon say, these are fun to read. One woman said she bought this book. She was given this book. It's in the Amazon review list, I think. And she had it by her bed. She never got around to reading it. And then she was going to Paris, France on a vacation. And she said, okay, I'll take that book. I'll read it on the plane. She's in her review, she said, the most important thing I can say about this book is I spent my first day in Paris, France, in the hotel room finishing the book.
Wow.
Captivating.
That was definitely
quite an honor that she gave you.
And you know, I thought that Dr. Freiberg is a bestseller author, not only in New York Times, but also the winner of 2017 Independent Publisher Gold Prize, the best book of year in psychology and mental health. And again, these books are written in an easy way for people to understand and connect, for anyone in storytelling. And I read a little bit, I didn't go through all of it, but you are an amazing storyteller, and the books are absolutely amazing. And thank you for all of your research and publishing, and thank you for being with us tonight.
This is it's really exciting to have you. This is kind of our kickoff podcast, and I can't think of a better guest to have than you were. I mean, it's just such an important topic, and we're honored to have you. Is there anything that, if you were to, I don't know, one nugget of knowledge or summarize maybe what we talked about today, what do you want to leave the audience?
I think I would say, just as you watch what you eat, because there's a lot of food manufacturers out there trying to sell you nonsense in a box, weirdo chemicals that you can't even pronounce.
Right.
And just as we have such a sedentary society where we all spend a lot of time sitting, we all know and do our best. They don't always succeed, but at least we try to eat smart, to get some exercise. The other thing is watch your connections, care about your friendships. They're part of your health system. So call your siblings, call your first cousins. Your grandparents not only knew all their first cousins, they knew all their second cousins.
Yeah.
Today, most of us can't name our second cousins. Okay, true. So keep it in mind. If eat well, get exercise, and stay connected with those you like and love, because they bring you health and happiness.
And it's really just as important as eating well and exercising.
Yeah. And you know what? If you don't have family close by, you can connect via FaceTime, or you can make new friends like I did. You make new friends and make family and community. And that's how you stay connected and basically fulfill that need of connection and community, so we improve our health.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Freiberg, thank you so much for being on the show. We really, really appreciate it. This is really great. It's a great conversation, and I'm sure our audience will be very excited.
My pleasure.
Like us and share with your friends.
Yes,
my pleasure.
I want to thank all of you for listening and watching our show. It's really important, and I hope that you really enjoyed this. And I want to also thank a few other people. Ron Gamache for our intro music. Ron does a great job. He's been a good friend of mine for many years, and thank you, Ron. We appreciate what you do. And also, Prima, your trusted medical providers in southeastern New England. BioSkills of Northeast for producing our show, and available to produce your show by calling 774-301-8811. And of course, Bay Coast Bank, just right for all your financial needs. Visit baycoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. And Duncan Hearing Healthcare you can trust, with sites in Fall River, Dartmouth, Falmouth, and Centerville. For more information, visit their website, duncanhearing.com. And I want to remind everyone also about our email, which is primacarebeyondthediagnosis@gmail.com. primacarebeyondthediagnosis@gmail.com. And please use that and send us questions. We will try to respond as best we can. Send us what you want to hear as we go forward with these podcasts. We want to make this tailored towards your needs. So
Thank you so much.
once again, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you.